Gather around for champagne. All right. Well, this is a tradition on all of our movies where we toast the first shot and we toast the last shot. And we have been actually in production on West Side Story for months. The choreography, the dance rehearsals, the music, the orchestrations with Gustavo Dudamel and David Newman conducting the New York Philharmonic Orchestra, Janine Tesori's work getting everybody primed and ready to sing these great songs, as great as anybody has ever sung them. And this is all to say that there's been 4 or 5 months of production already on West Side Story. But now the production to actually bring all those elements together as one voice into an ensemble, into a relevant story to the times we now live in. I'm just so proud and honored that I got this shot. I got a shot late in my career of being able to tell this story directly based on the 1957 Broadway musical. So I want to first of all thank Tony Kushner, who was the one that made this possible. And Christy McCosco, who pulled this entire production together over the last 3.5 years. Christy! And our whole crew and cast, gosh, I'm so proud to be here, and thank you all, and let's have a great safe shoot.
We know this music is for everybody in the world, in the universe, I think.
Mom was a pianist and eventually a concert pianist. The first piece of contemporary music that ever came into the household was from 1957 Broadway musical of West Side Story. And my parents got the album, and I basically commandeered it. And I remember, having never seen West Side Story, I could see it in my imagination. I was 10 years old when I first listened to the album, and it never went away. And I didn't see any reason why something that's been performed thousands of times on stages all over the world, which is West Side Story, couldn't have more than one motion picture made of it.
We started in 2014, and Kevin McCullum had the rights to the stage musical, and so he knew that we could go to the estates and Stephen Sondheim and get the rights. And they were not willing to give this movie over to just anyone, and so Stephen had to win him over. And it's interesting, I mean, he's one of the greatest filmmakers of all time, but he had to work for it.
His inventiveness about how to treat the songs and how to change things in the story is really exciting.
They knew after talking to him what his love of the musical was and why he loved musicals so much. And so we had a few meetings with them. There were things that we couldn't change. There were things that we had to work around, and we were in for all of it because we just wanted to make a fantastic musical.
Watching Steven Spielberg start filming West Side Story and turning and saying, "I am terrified," was a great place for all of us to start. At one point he turned, he said, "It's like action movies," and it's really true. Activating a musical number is key.
Approaching a musical really requires like developing some new techniques, and it was a very steep learning curve, and Steven just learned it.
On something like West Side Story, it took hubris, and it took, for me, patience, and it took a deep, deep love and respect for those themes. I was in my early 70s when I started this process of wanting to make West Side Story, and I'll be almost 75 when the film comes out. And I realized, I guess you can teach an old dog new tricks.
It's like taking a flag and going like this.
It's become more relevant now than the original West Side Story because of what's happening in our times.
On top of that, the music of West Side Story is one of the most incredible pieces I've ever heard.
I think all great art is timeless, and all great stories are timeless.
With West Side Story especially, there's something that is so important about the race aspect, and the fact that at the end of the day, we're all the human race.
I'm not Puerto Rican.
Is that okay?
With Steven's help, with the help of the entire creative team and Tony Kushner, I've been able to find something really new inside of her and who this character is.
That's all the charisma I can take.
Yay!
Okay.
Great.
One of the gifts this movie has brought me is is the gift of acceptance of who I am, and to be accepted by the Latin community, by the Hispanic community, and more importantly, by the Puerto Rican community, is something I never really thought I was going to find.
The first question, I think, was really about approach. And Steven's very first direction to me was get it outside, make it real.
I kind of wanted West Side Story for us to be as street real as humanly possible. And Adam Stockhausen, the production designer, really made that possible by finding some extraordinary locations.
Jets!
There was a couple of parking lots in Paterson, New Jersey, and we were able to build the destroyed area. We very quickly got this idea that the Jets part of the neighborhood would be the one that had just been knocked down. Steven wanted the site of this demolition to be a really active part of this story.
Great, that's gonna work.
But for me, The Dance at the Gym could be the movie as far as I'm concerned.
We looked at a lot of gyms because we had so many dancers that had to fit in the space. We didn't want it to be enormous, but it had to be intimate enough to hold the dance, but large enough to work, and it needed to have bleachers. And then, of course, it needed a stage, had to have good entrances for the Sharks to come in because the Sharks' entrance into the dance was a big event.
The Dance at the Gym was 60 dancer actors and 150 extras and some very, very ambitious shots that involved a lot of people, a lot of moving parts, and oftentimes took a long time to capture.
Every time you deal with a whole bunch of people in the frame, it's a nightmare for a cinematographer because we wanted to create that sense of deep focus. So that requires tremendous amount of light. This was the movie that had to be sharp all the way from the foreground to the background to reflect the beauty of the story, to reflect the beauty of the dance.
Oye, Javi! Ponle fuego, vamos!
We had a lot of discussions with the wardrobe department as well with Paul. There was a color palette for the Sharks and a color palette for the Jets. We spent months talking about this and shopping for it.
The second Paul said, we're gonna do a black dress, the red petticoat, I said, sign me up!
Each of the dresses is different, and they are able to hold the gang together as a group, and a fabric was chosen to do just the right thing. So there was engineered so that they will open up, and it would give Justin everything that he needed for the movement.
Where's Paul Tazwell?
To be shown the appreciation of the people that are going to be wearing the clothes was very, very moving.
Paul was certainly a new kid on the block because I used so many of the same people over and over again, film after film. But I loved Paul's work. He designed all the costumes for Hamilton, and I really wanted to work with him on this. At the end of Dance in the Gym, I couldn't believe I was never going back to that high school. I would never see that gym again. It was so sad. We had a blast. It was early in the schedule, and Dance in the Gym helped us realize the kind of movie we were making.
This is the end of Dance in the Gym.
It's always an added challenge when you're on location. But my goal is always to make it sound real. Whenever you're doing a live piece of music, you have to use wireless earpieces. They do pre-records before we're doing a scene, and those pre-records will play back into their earpieces when we start filming. We'll do a few pieces to playback so that the actors get into it, and then we'll switch over and go to live.
Oh, that's great.
Andy Nelson and Gary Rydstrom are more concerned about really getting as many sound effects and about getting the best vocal tracks possible. So Jerry and Mike and everybody who worked with me, they would put microphones all over the place, and we would capture cars, cranes, and everything else that was going on while we're doing dialogue. So the tracks have a lot going on.
Hey! We got it. Great.
Oh, it was very hot. It was so hot.
On one occasion, we had to postpone filming because it just was too hot.
But it was very fun, and I wouldn't trade it for the world, making this film outside in the streets of New York.
We all knew how important this movie was to Steven, so we all brought our best selves to every day on set.
And cut.
He remains a student. He remains curious. And when he's not working, he tells me he's just studying footage. Here's a guy who just loves what he does. And, you know, that really was infectious for everyone. It allowed everyone to kind of come and approach the material from the same mentality of just chasing your joy.
Amazing!
I've been preparing for this moment and not prepared for this moment. On most productions, when we've reached the last shot and we have our ceremonial toast, I'm pretty happy to go home and get my life back. And this is one production I never wanted to see end. I have had the greatest time making West Side Story. And when people would ask me like years ago, okay, you've done a war movie, you've done a shark movie, you've done a UFO movie, you've done an adventure movie, what haven't you done? And I've always said a musical. And no one's taken it seriously. Well, I hope this time they take it seriously. We couldn't have done any of this without any of us doing the best work we've ever done. God bless all of you. So thank you for everything.
West Side Story! West Side what? West Side Story! West Side what? West Side Story!
Okay, I think we should do the last shot. I'm leading Rita to the precipice of a slate.
I did the final clap for the final take of West Side Story, the original. So I asked Stephen if I could do that. He said, absolutely. He said, I love that.
And so we set the shot up, and Rita came in and she slated it. And then we did the shot, and it was perfect on the first take. But I wasn't ready to finish shooting West Side Story. I made Rita go back in with that slate, because I wasn't willing to say it's a wrap.
Take 2. Take 9. Take 12.
And if Rita hadn't finally stood up and said, okay, this is enough, it's great, I would have kept shooting that night because I did not want this experience to end for me.
Print, check the gate, and wrap!